What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with Samsung Galaxy A14 5G camera tips and tricks. So stay tuned if you want to learn how to get the most out of all the various cameras on your device. Now, before I dive into all the various camera features that we're getting here with the Galaxy A14 5G, let me give you an introduction to the actual cameras that we're getting here with the phone. Now, there's a 13 megapixel front-facing camera here with the device. And then on the back of the phone, there's a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. Now, the depth sensing camera is used to help with portrait mode, and then we're also getting portrait mode with the front-facing camera. Now, heading into the camera app here on the device, this is how things look. This is with the main camera right now. Now, keep in mind that even though the main camera on the device is 50 megapixels, you actually have to switch over to the 50 megapixel mode to capture images in that full resolution. So you can go up top here where it says 3x4, tap there, and you'll see right there 3x4 50 megapixel. So we'll go there, and then now after switching to that mode, you can actually capture images in 50 megapixels. Now keep in mind though that you probably shouldn't do this with all the images you capture with the phone, as the 50 megapixel photos will take up quite a bit more storage on your device, and you'll probably find your phone filling up very quickly. So I would only use it in certain situations where it really seems to be necessary, but nonetheless, I'm glad that it is an option. Now also up in this area, there's some other toggles too. So you can go back over to that default regular 3x4. You can also switch over to 9x16 or 16x9, depending on which way you do it. But essentially, this is great for thumbnails. And then also over here, there's an option for 1x1, so that's square. That might be good for Instagram. And then there's also an option for full, which takes up the entire display space here on the device. But now that I showed you that, let me show you how to access some of the other various cameras here on the phone. So from here, you can go over to Portrait to use portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds. So I know that's a very popular feature. There's also a slider down here, so if you want more blur, you can do that. Or if you want less blur, you can do that too. So pretty straightforward there. You can also head over to the More tab, and over here, you can access the macro camera. And then, as I mentioned before, with that macro camera, you can get very close up to whatever object you want to take a photo of. So there we go, a nice macro photo of that plant. Then from here, we can flip around to the front-facing camera by tapping on this arrow button. And there's me with the front camera. You can also do a group selfie, which crops out slightly. And if you want to as well, you can go over to portrait mode to take portrait selfies. So just like the portrait mode for the rear camera, you can adjust the blur here as well, which is really nice. Now, another cool thing too is that if you want to switch from the front camera to the rear camera or vice versa, you can actually just swipe down here on the actual viewfinder. So that's a pretty cool hidden feature that most people don't even know is present here. So that's very convenient. Now then from here, we're going to go back to the More tab. And you can see there's a lot of different options. So there's a pro mode, for example. So with that, you get more customizations for ISO and white balance, for example. There's also an option for panorama, night mode, food mode, slow motion, hyperlapse, and macro, as I showed you before. But what's really interesting is if you want to take any of these options here in the More tab and put it down in the main slider, you can actually easily customize that. So to customize it, just go to this plus button. Then from there, we're going to take whichever mode here. So I'm going to choose macro. You just pick that up, drop it down here, go to save. And then now, as you can see, I have macro in this bottom slider. So that's very convenient. We can then head back to the More tab, go to add once again, or that plus button, and you can put it back to where it was. So I'll drag that back. You can see also we have an option to move portrait mode into there. So if you don't use portrait mode a lot, for example, and you want to get rid of it in that bottom menu, you do have that ability. And then for the regular photo and video modes, as you probably can imagine, you can't actually remove those from the bottom slider. But that's a really cool way to customize things, so pretty awesome there. Now moving on, in the upper right corner here, we have this button. If you go there, there's a variety of different filters that you can apply when capturing your image. You can also adjust the intensity of those filters as well, which is pretty cool. There's also some face filters too, so that's kind of interesting. Then getting out of there and going up here, we have the timer. So you can see we have options for timer off, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, or 10 seconds. So that's very convenient too. There's also an option for the flash. So you can have the flash off, flash on auto, or flash on at all times. Now heading over to video mode, you can actually choose the flash up here, and you can have it on all the time. So if you want kind of like a torch on or a flashlight while you're creating your video, that's a pretty interesting feature. Maybe you're in a dark area and you're recording a video. I could definitely see if that could come in handy. Then up here in video mode, we have an option for the resolution. So we have full HD or regular HD. So essentially FHD is 1080p and HD is 720p. So if you find yourself not wanting to take videos at the maximum resolution, you can always switch over to 720p. Another cool feature I want to show you is a quick and easy way to get to the camera app. All you have to do is just double press on the power button no matter where you are throughout the operating system. So let's give that a try right now. So just like that, I double pressed on the power button and you can see that it quickly took us over to the camera. Let's try that one more time from the app drawer. And there we go. So certainly very convenient. Then in the upper left corner, we have this gear icon. By going there, we have some other various camera settings. So some of these are already enabled, some are not. I would definitely check to see what's enabled by default and what is not, as sometimes that's different for different versions of the phone. For example, some carriers prefer to have certain items checked off by default, so a little bit frustrating, but just go in this menu and see what is already enabled and what's not. But you can see one of the options is Scene Optimizer, so automatically optimize your shots for the scene, so that's pretty helpful. Also scan QR codes, so you can do that straight from the camera app. We also have Swipe Shutter button, so by default, you can swipe on the shutter button to take a burst shot. So let's do that right now. There we go, I just took 10 photos very quickly there. Then heading back over to here, you can change that to create GIF or GIF instead. And then swiping down on that button creates a GIF or GIF image. So you can see, there's that image right there. So that's very convenient. Also over here, you can see an option for high efficiency photos. So that's just kind of another photo mode that you can put the camera in so that you can use up less space on your device. But this does potentially open you up to some issues for incompatibility. Save selfies is previewed. Essentially, it saves the selfies as they appear in the preview without flipping them. So that's another mode there to keep in mind. Video stabilization, that's a good thing to have enabled. Also auto HDR, so essentially it captures various details in your photo and kind of merges them together. This is one that you might want to consider, grid lines, so we'll enable that. And then going back here, you can see we do indeed now have grid lines. So it splits things into 9 rectangles, kind of giving us the rule of thirds here. So that could be helpful, and you can do this in both photo and video mode. Heading back over to the settings, we have location tags, so you can add tags to your pictures and videos so you can see where you were when they were taken. So that's kind of an optional thing. It really depends on if that's helpful to you. Shooting methods, let's go there. So right now, by default, with the volume key, you can use that to take a picture or record a video. So we'll give that a try. So I'll do volume up, and it took a photo, volume down, takes a photo, and it'll do the same thing with video mode. Then from here, we can go back over to this area, and there's also the option for using the volume buttons to zoom, or you can use them to control the system volume as you would in any other app. So let's try it for zoom. So you can see volume up, zooming in, volume down, zooming out. Also in this shooting methods area is the floating shutter button. So by enabling that, you can see we have an additional shutter button, and you can put it anywhere in the camera app. But with that floating shutter button, it works the same way as the regular shutter button. You can just conveniently tap on the shutter button to capture the photo. We'll head back over to some of the other settings here. There's another one here, Show Palm. That's already enabled by default, but I'll show you that works. So for this next feature, Show Palm, you just put your palm in the frame here. And there we go, it's gonna take the photo. And there we go. We'll try that one more time. And there we go, took another selfie. We also have settings to keep. So there's options for camera mode, selfie angle, and filters. And basically, if there's certain settings here that you prefer to keep every time you access the camera app, you can select that here. We also have watermark. So if you want to have a watermark in the corner of your photo, kind of similar to those old school photos you take with film cameras, you can add the date and time to appear in every photo. You can also have the name of the phone. That's especially helpful to me because sometimes I don't remember which phone takes which photo. So I can have that here so I can better keep track of that for my reviews. You can also go over and edit and add a name instead. So I could type in my name if I want instead of the actual name of the phone. And then this is kind of a newer thing with this version of One UI, but there's an option for the font and alignment as well. So you can actually have your watermark centered or have it off to the other side instead. So that's a really nice customization there. So the watermark feature really is kind of a specialty feature where it really has to make sense for you to use it, but I'm glad it's a thing. Another thing I want to show you too is shutter sound. So you probably noticed that when you capture a photo or take a video, it makes a sound. Now I'm not a fan of that, so fortunately you can just go over to here, disable that, and then now there's no sounds when you're actually using the camera app when you're actually pressing on the shutter here. So that's really nice. And then if for some reason you want to bring everything back to the default, you can always reset all the camera settings right there. But this concludes my video on camera tips and tricks for the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it to be helpful and learned something new today. But with all that said, make sure to like the video, take a look at my other Galaxy A14 5G videos here on the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.